Welcome back to another Boxscore Geeks show. I cannot tell you how excited I am about tonight's show. We are going to be talking The Mighty Ducks with amazing special guest, the That Thing You Like podcast that you can find at thatthingyouLike.com. I'll actually let you guys take the lead. I'll introduce myself and Brian after, but first, special guests, Brian and Chris. So Brian Sherlaw, who you can find on Twitter as Brian_RS. Brian, say something inspiring to the audience.
It's not worth winning if you can't win big.
Oh, that's amazing. All right. Then we also have Chris Baxter, who you can find on Twitter as Cbax. Chris, give a shout out.
I can't believe you took that line from me. You know what? You lost it for me.
You lost it for yourself.
All right. And so actually, we're just going to do an improv thing where we just reenact scenes from the movie for the next 2 hours, which I'd be fine with. Anyway, I'm your host, Andres Alvarez. You can find me on Twitter as Nerd Numbers. As always, this show is produced by the amazing, second best Brian on the show now, but Brian Foster, who you can find on Twitter as Boxscore Brian. Say hey, Brian.
Oh, that's always been the case, Dre. And, I actually didn't watch the Mighty Ducks when they first came out, so I'm really thrilled to, get some legitimate takes from you guys on it and get educated.
All right, so keeping you in the loop on the plan, we're planning to do podcasts on all three Mighty Ducks, but lucky you, we're going to do it in 3 parts. So the Boxscore Geeks, we're going to take part 1. You're going to go to thatthingyouLike.com to find part 2, hopefully this week, right? We're both going to put them out this week. We'll have Absolutely. A race to see who goes first. And then at some point in the future, after Brian and Chris have powered through Mighty Ducks 3, the worst, although second best rated according to Rotten Tomatoes of the Mighty Ducks movies, we'll re-meet and discuss Mighty Ducks 3. So let's just get going on Mighty Ducks 1. There's so much to discuss. So the 3 things I'm going to give us are, the patented That Thing You Like good plus the shit minus. I figure it's, worth using on this show since you're on. I've got WTFs. There's just so much to discuss about this movie. I figure that's the easiest way to kind of bullet point it. And then we'll do power rankings, another thing from the That Thing You Like show. All right, so I'll throw it out to you two first. You decide who goes, but let's just get into it. Good plus to shit minus. If you want to explain the rating system a bit for those who don't listen to That Thing You Like show normally, and then we'll just go from there.
Brian, I'll let you take the reins on explaining our patented good plus to shit minus rating.
Sure. So the good plus to shit minus rating is essentially a rating scale without gray areas, except that we use it for gray areas literally every week. But the main thing is good plus to shit minus. So the rating goes good plus to good minus to shit plus to shit minus. So a shit plus is still generally a fairly good movie, or at least has some things that you like. But it kind of, we think it's a little bit better, a little bit more conversational, a little bit more accurate to evaluate a work of art than, say, a 10-point scale, a 5-point scale, a letter grade. What are all these things? They're all arbitrary. They don't mean anything, and in the end, nothing matters. So that's why we always try to go with something like the good plus shit minus scale, because A, we invented it, so we like it, and B, it's just a lot of fun, and we like to cuss. We like to cuss a little bit.
Yeah.
We're like grade 5 students who just learned swear words, and we're not good at it yet, so we just want to test them out, feel them out a little bit.
Grade 5 is like Canadian, so is that like second year college in the U.S.? I can never get the conversion right.
That is what the conversion is, yes.
Yeah, easily. Yeah.
Well, it depends, because it goes up and down, depending on the markets, right?
Yeah, depending on the dollar.
Yeah.
All right. So anyway, what say you in terms of good plus to shit minus for this movie?
Well, I'll throw it to Chris on this one.
Okay. So for this one, the very first Mighty Ducks movie, one of the things that we do factor in is what the movie actually means to you. So, maybe first time viewing at this age of my life, I think the rating would probably be vastly different. But I grew up with this movie. This is one of the movies of my childhood. This is one of the formative movies of my life. I feel like I am the man that I am today, large in part because of the lessons I learned from watching Mighty Ducks. Most importantly of all, that it's not worth winning if you can't win big. That's why I'm going big. For me, Mighty Ducks is a good plus.
Oh my God, that is... All right, I'll let Brian talk, then I'll...
For much the same reason, I would also give it a good plus.
Hey!
I think watching this movie, it's the kind of thing where... And yes, I realize and think we should discuss that these movies were critically panned They are all at the best one on Rotten Tomatoes is Mighty Ducks 2, which is sitting at 21%. That's low, folks.
Criminally low.
Really, really low. But this movie came out at a time, just like I'm sure there are other movies out there like The Sandlot or, movies of that ilk, which they hit you at the right time. They're completely for you when you're a child, before you have your critical faculties about you. And then even as an adult, there are certainly really weird, messed up things in this movie that I think are worth talking about, but I can't really bring myself to openly criticize this as harsh as I might something else because I have such a childhood association with it. So, I understand that there's a certain part where, you can't be afraid to look back on your past and realize that some things are bad. And that's fine. But Mighty Ducks, I was watching it and the credits rolled to Mighty Ducks 1 and I was like, that was a good fucking movie.
Yeah.
That's a really good movie.
I am not ashamed of my love for this movie.
No.
So you are both going for good plus?
We're both going good plus.
Yeah.
I think I have to go for
good
shit
plus. Okay, clean.
Yeah, we did it. Yay, it's the best movie ever.
No, I was going to say I gave it a shit plus, and the plus is really nostalgia.
Okay.
It is really, I agree. I grew up with this. I love this movie as a kid. And rewatching it as an adult, and then also, maybe it was the wrong frame of mind, but I had a notebook open and was taking notes and just asking. The problem with this movie is if you kind of have your brain turned off during it, you can probably enjoy it. But the second you ask any question in this movie, it falls apart really, really quickly. And I felt that happened a lot throughout the movie. But I did want to talk, actually, this is kind of interesting first, like, why it actually stuck, because I really did like this movie. It does hold a fondness in my heart. I'm curious to both of you what you think about that. I think something you've mentioned before is hockey's not really represented. You really liked that in Pixar's, what was it, Inside Out?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was, I'm trying to just make sure I get the name. Like, you really liked that hockey was represented in that movie, and that's not really normally shown in movies. And I think, I'm looking up Miracle, but I believe adjusted for inflation, this movie, unless you count Inside Out, does hold the distinction of being the top grossing adjusted for inflation hockey movie of all time.
That's a very specific criteria,
fair, yeah.
but I agree. For me, that's definitely a big part of why it appealed as a kid, because growing up as a kid in the wintry tundra of Canada, except that we live in Vancouver, which is beautiful all the time, we still play hockey. We grew up playing street hockey all the time. Like, this movie was like me and all my friends growing up, my tiny little hockey playing friends, we all quoted this movie to each other all the time. Same thing with D2, less so for D3. But, this movie it hit at exactly the right time in a way that no kids movie about baseball or football, like Little Giants or The Sandlot, really did in the same way. And I like The Sandlot a lot. Little Giants, it's not without its charms. But you know what I'm saying, Chris?
Oh yeah, definitely. This is the game of our childhood, much like a lot of people, probably more so in the States, grew up with football or baseball. We grew up playing hockey every day. So to be able to be like, oh, I see hockey on the screen, there's that extra like X factor to that makes this movie stand out for us.
Well, also, okay, so on that vein, the X factor sticking out because you played hockey. This isn't really a WTF, but I have plenty of those. Here's what I want to ask you. There is a lot of hockey strategy, hockey coaching techniques, things that a future up-and-coming hockey coach or player might try and infer from this movie. I want to ask you about a few of these as, people that actually play hockey. What is your opinion of the flying V as a hockey strategy?
Like in the movie, it works great.
Yeah, it is one of the greatest plays of all time. I don't understand why more NHL teams don't use it on a regular basis. I'm
sure it's successful at the college level.
Oh yeah, it's one of those things.
Much like how the read option doesn't always translate to the NFL.
Exactly. Yeah, I don't know. There was a video floating around. I feel like it was a few years ago, but probably because I don't understand the concept of time, it was probably like 10 years ago at this point. But a team accidentally did the flying V very briefly, and someone noticed it, and there's a YouTube video out there of them being
We have that video
Oh,
for
you do? Oh my God, you
Yes,
guys are
we
the
do.
best. Why would I even think that you wouldn't already have it?
Who is the guy that you just absolutely hate in Vancouver who was really good? I can't believe I'm forgetting his name.
Oh, Mark Messier?
Oh yeah, Messier,
Yeah.
because I'm noticing it's a Rangers game.
Yeah.
No, it was recent though. I was gonna say if it was like Messier.
Yeah, those are the
doing
new
that.
jerseys. Those are the
All
new
right.
Kings jerseys. But
Yeah.
Yeah, the flying V as a strategy, I mean, it seems counterintuitive because, the thing in hockey is like you want to create a lot of spacing, you want to find your open man, maybe cycle the puck a little bit. Kind of tough to do all those things if the puck is contained within like a 3x3 box.
But you're cycling it within the
No,
V.
I know, but it's still all there. Like if you wanted to take a run at the flying V.
I guess so. All I'll say is one time my roller hockey team, and there's only 4 people on the ice in roller hockey, or not the ice, the floor, I guess, in roller hockey, so you don't get a true V. But one time, and our team was actually, we call our team District 5 because Mighty
Nice.
Ducks. We decided to be like, you know what, fuck it, flying V, and then it didn't work at all, so...
Well, what I'll say is, and I hate to steal a little thunder from movie 2, but I don't even know where this would show up in the notes. I did actually like that in Mighty Ducks 2, they tried the flying V against the Iceland Vikings.
Yep.
And they actually just checked them and took it and got a 4-on-0 breakaway and just scored.
Yeah. Oh yeah,
So
that's 100% what would happen if you actually tried the flying V.
Yeah, and that's kind of a cool thing in the movie is like, oh, the things that work at the Pee-wee level don't work against more talented players.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm excited for number 2, which we're recording next, because there's a lot to talk there. All right, other coaching strategies. He has them pass eggs back and forth to each other to learn that they should send the puck, not slap it to each other. Do you know anybody that at any hockey level that's done this? And do you think it's a good way to teach how to pass?
I mean, I've never done it, but like in theory, it makes sense. Like you don't want to have your stick hard when a puck gets to you so that it like bounces off your stick or anything.
I understand the receiving side of it.
Yeah.
That makes sense. But I don't think his coaching of when you're passing the puck, you want to do it gently, because like when you're passing the puck, you want to pass it pretty hard.
Yeah, definitely.
You're probably going to break that egg. Receiving it, you definitely want to, cradle it like he shows you in the movie.
Interesting. And yeah, I mean, that was an interesting one. I think he has some other ones seem normal. Maybe I'm wrong because they seem very US, because it's like what you would do for basketball. He has them like go between cones. That seems
That's
pretty
pretty
rote.
standard.
Yeah.
Yeah. You get your kind of stick handling skills and be able to understand your edges and turn real quick.
All right, how about this? Fulton Reed is unable to skate, so he just puts them in a pair of rollerblades and sends them through Mall of America, and that's how you learn how to skate.
Yeah, I mean, I remember and thank you for bringing that point up. I remember specifically when I didn't know how to skate, one parent rounded up all the kids and basically took us on a trip to the Mall of America.
Yeah.
It wasn't down to the rink or down outside. It was like, you got to go to the place where the greats learn to skate. And that's number 1, the Mall of America.
Well, yeah,
located
that's
in
yeah,
Michigan.
that's
not Michigan. Minnesota.
Minneapolis, right?
Yeah. Minneapolis, Minnesota. Yeah, that is a traditional rite of passage of all Canadian kids.
Yeah, it's
Is
true.
Strapping on the rollerblades, heading to the Mall of America.
Yeah, and I mean this in the best way possible. I don't intend for this to be offensive, but it's almost like a pilgrimage for us.
Yes.
I don't know who that would offend, but if anybody from
Well, I mean,
Minnesota
if anyone is actually thinking about taking a trip to Mecca for religious reasons, that kind of thing, I'm just saying.
I get you. All right.
Maybe more loosely spiritual,
Yes.
not hardcore religious.
But yeah, that definitely speaks to this being a very 90s movie, in that every 90s movie was like, rollerblading is the coolest thing in the world. We need to find a reason to have a rollerblading scene.
And guess what? That's in every single Mighty Ducks movie.
It sure is.
Actually, I was going to say, so this, like I said, I may come back to one more coaching strategy, but as a WTF moment, I was watching the movie and it occurred to me, this takes place in Minnesota. It takes place apparently when it's cold enough for the ice to freeze. That's actually a key plot point. When Gordon Bombay, a former lawyer, comes out for community service, has to train these kids. He drives his limo out onto the ice. Yet when you watch it, they are rollerblading everywhere, and there is no snow to be found, which doesn't seem to line up to me, because I live in the Midwest now, and winter versus summer with snow and coldness are very different things.
I'm here to tell you that I've watched this movie, I'm going to say, conservative estimate, 7,000 times in my life. You've just blown my mind.
Yeah.
I never noticed that.
Me either, because I know like there are scenes like when they're like rollerblading and like, oh, I don't know,
Yeah,
like
it's
they're
like-
running to like Fulton and
Yeah, it's like
streets or whatever.
summer.
Yeah,
But then they're like on the ice later to practice. So
Yeah.
So yeah, I noticed that, and then also what I noticed is one of the reasons I noticed this is I moved from Denver, Colorado to the Midwest. I now live in Wisconsin. No one in Minnesota has a Midwest accent. No one in this movie talks like they're from the Midwest. It is a very distinct. I don't have it clearly, but it is a very distinct accent to have in the Midwest, and no one sounds like it. And I mean, even Canada, right? The border I don't know, what's Minnesota close to? Like, is there a distinct accent for north of the border for Minnesota and whatever Providence? You've got five, and I would love to say that I know my geography well enough to know which one it is, but I don't. I think it's Manitoba.
I hate to break it to you, we also have more than 5 provinces.
Wait, you have more than five? When did that happen?
Yeah.
Well, like 5 that matter.
That's true. Suck it, Maritimes.
Yeah.
Yeah, we do have more than 5 provinces. I mean that's fair. I mean, I know how many states there are, but that's fine.
Well, do you have a flag that has the exact number in star format? Because that is
No,
how.
we think that's
Yeah.
gauche. We think that's gauche. That's
Well,
not
there
what
you
Canada's
go.
about.
If you want people to know about the number of provinces, that's what you should do. But anyway,
Yeah, you're totally right. Like, I wonder if anyone out like who got cast in this movie was like, I'm gonna try the Minnesota accent, and they just like nixed it.
No, there's a lot of people who are. It's like the little kid Peter. He's almost like a Brooklyn or Chicago kind of street talk.
Yeah, definitely.
the only one that is legal right is Goldberg. They say explicitly is from Philadelphia.
Yeah,
And
Yeah,
he kind of tries to.
Jewish.
I don't even know if he does it but like that's the only person that even has a legitimate reason for saying I don't have the accent I should. But no one else in this movie. And I noticed that I was like, this is really interesting. They very clearly go out of their way to say this is taking place in Minnesota. No one here talks like they're from Minnesota. It's not cold like it's from Minnesota. I got nothing beyond that. It just that's one of those things I noticed.
I mean, all I'll say is I've never been to Minnesota.
Yeah.
So I don't know what their weather patterns are like, or I mean, I don't know what their accents are like.
As far as I know, it's exactly as depicted in the Mighty Ducks movies, and that's how I'm going to continue living my life, believing that.
That's actually my favorite thing about this movie is that it really does a good job of blurring the lines between fact and fiction. Like, it's so close to reality that you'd think, is this a documentary? No, it's not. I know it's scripted.
Well, the characters feel so real, though.
That's the big part of it, yeah. And everything that happens in the movie is 100% plausible.
Yeah.
Well, actually, on that same note, I feel weird even bringing this because it's like one of the not even really related at all. But in the beginning of the movie, they show the kids in this scene where they like play a prank on a guy. They get some dog poop, they put it in a purse, they leave the purse with a dollar bill hanging out, and this guy comes by and picks it up in his car. And then they do this really weird Benny Hill where they like speed up and have like weird Bugs Bunny sound effects.
Okay, I noticed that
so,
too. Yeah. And I didn't remember that.
I also didn't remember that. That especially the speeding up of the
well,
frame
not only
rate.
that, the speeding up of the frame rate would have been fine and almost like passable if it was just for like one shot. But they kept it for the entire chase. It was like, well, we don't want to cut any of this. How can we fit it all in?
Yeah,
I guess
it's all
we'll-
gold.
Yeah, I guess we'll just speed it all up.
Yeah, and it like he chased him and he had this, it was like really rough too. He had a really rough crotch shot and they like focused in on his face. And I had no idea why that was in the movie other than maybe like the final cut came back and they're like, we're at 70 minutes. Is there anything else you can add to the movie? And they're like, all right, we'll add a Queen song at the end. That's going to give us like 5 minutes. And we'll add this one scene that we recorded for another movie entirely and just play it off in there or something.
Almost.
Yeah, it makes
All right,
sense.
But
to
it
me.
was just a setup that they're rambunctious kids.
Yes.
Yeah, I was gonna-
Rambunctious inner city Minnesota kids with a heart of gold.
There is a lot to say there. So I've got many, many more WTFs, but do you have anything specific, WTF or otherwise, to comment on in the movie?
Yeah, I got a huge one that I didn't notice as a kid.
All right, what do we got?
The Oreo line.
Yes! Oh my God!
Okay, so and by the way, the WTF moment doesn't even come when it's used. I mean, that's pretty horrible. Like, that's a really fucked up thing for a kid to say. But then later, when it becomes kind of an affectionate thing for Coach Bombay to
yeah.
call
So-
it, that's
so for
the moment
people-
when it's
for
like,
people-
what the hell?
So for people listening, I actually do want to give the full, I don't want to say context to justify it, just so you understand. The evil team, in one of the first scenes that we meet them, there is a line on the Mighty Ducks that has 2 black children and a white child in the middle. And so the opposing person who we know is
It's Guy and the
evil.
Hall Brothers, right?
Yeah, it was
Guy and the
Guy.
Hall brothers.
But it was Guy and the Hall, that's right. And so the opposing person says,
All the Mighty Ducks.
I love that you know all that, Chris. The opposing evil player, I apologize for not knowing his name, says, what is this, the Oreo line? And they get mad. So that's understandable. The evil character says something racist.
But that is really like that is a real specific kind of racism for a kid. Like
That
that's
is
learned
true.
behavior.
That is true. But then later, Coach Bombay, when he's calling out his line, says, all right, Oreo line, go. And even on the Wikipedia page, they're referred to as the Oreo line. So
Right.
yeah, you saw that. And then also on the same vein, and I'll let you go, when Coach Bombay first meets the team, and I think he's talking to Jesse because Jesse's trying to act tough to him. He calls him like bro, and
Yeah.
it's
Yes.
really weird. It's like this. There is some weird like subtle. We have black people in this movie, but we don't quite know how to treat them right. So
Yeah. Well, I mean, until later on when, like, Jesse gets kind of a character arc with Adam Banks, and like he's a character beyond just being part of the Oreo line, which is important. But the thing I really wonder is, Oreo now, for those who don't know, is a kind of a really, really derogatory term for, say, an African American person who doesn't act quote unquote African American. Someone who acts more like quote unquote white, or how cultural like norms say that white people act. But I wonder if that was kind of an accepted slang term at the time, because maybe it's possible that it just wasn't in the pop culture vernacular like that term is now, even though, to be fair, it was written by a white man, so there's a huge potential that he didn't know that, or he didn't know it was a term, and there was no internet then to Wikipedia or Urban Dictionary Oreo as an offensive term. I don't know.
And Chris just that's the correct response. It's like, as a white guy, I'm just going to take a drink and.
I'm
go,
not defending it. It's just...
No, yeah, and it is one of those like going back and watching old movies. It's like these are the kinds of things that you notice more and more, being like, holy shit, how did people think this was okay at the time?
So, by the way, as a kind of weird, just overarching thing on the Mighty Ducks, I was conflicted. Not really conflicted, but it's fascinating. So, watch this movie. Right, has minority characters in it. It actually has female characters that are main characters. It's true in Mighty Ducks too. But then they like have racist stereotypes about them. So it's a really hard thing to watch because you're like, yay, representation. Oh, you're also racist and sexist. So it's really hard to like have those going on at the same time because they're more representative than movies are now, but then they're way less PC than movies are now. And I don't know.
In a certain way, yeah. Although the woman Mighty Ducks player who's not Connie, Tammy, who's only in Mighty Ducks 1, she has a line at the beginning where, or not at the beginning, when I can't remember what it is. It's something like
it's what do I know about hockey? And then pushes her brother, and he says, "More than you think." Is that what you're thinking?
No,
of?
I'm not thinking about that.
Oh, okay.
I'm thinking about the line when Coach Bombay comes into their classroom when they're all in detention for quacking at the teacher.
Oh, right. And he says, "Guys," and she says, "People."
Yeah. And like the fact that they point that out, I'm like, I know that's kind of a joke, but like, yeah, all right.
Yeah, you're right.
They
Yeah.
give it to her. I mean, that's fine.
Yeah, again, it's like it's funny. I think I don't know if you've done a strip about this. It feels like your humor if you haven't, but it is the like, yay, oh no, yay. Oh yeah, it was about the Unbreakable Kimmy Schmidt.
Oh right, yeah.
Where you were basically like, yes, representation. Oh no, this. Oh yes,
something
this.
else wrong. Yeah.
And then you're like, I don't know how to feel. And Mighty Ducks is like that, where you're like, yay, representation, no racism, yes, yay, and then at the end I'm just like, I don't even know.
That's exactly it, and it's like amplified because like this movie does hold a special place in my heart, and anytime you go back and watch a movie that means something like that to you, you're a little bit hesitant because it's like, oh, there's probably going to be something not so good in there.
Yeah.
And with this one, it was like, oh, representation. Oh, racism. Oh, representation.
But the racism was like the Oreo line thing was like technically like, but again, I'm not here to just out and out defend the usage of that word, but they did give it to the villain, and then it was kind of reappropriated as a term of endearment.
So now it's like, that's our word.
Which is still not great. No. And like that's not a word that I don't think any actual like. I mean, I'm sure. I don't want to speak for the experience of anyone who's not me, but I don't know. It's not great, I guess is what I'm saying. I don't know. There's no way to end this sentence that makes me feel good.
Yeah, for those watching, just like Brian ended that by just putting his hands over his face because like that's all you can do. Oh, by the way, there are 10 provinces. Who knew? All right. So let's see. That was you actually.
Oh.
What's up?
Oh, sorry. I do have a WTF moment.
What do we got?
So this is one that has actually been highlighted a lot in reference to this movie. But are we ever going to see a protagonist of a movie rolling out just openly drinking in a kid's movie? Yeah. Openly drinking in his motor vehicle ever again?
Never.
Well, this was Gordon Bombay. Yeah, Gordon Bombay arrested for drinking and not driving while drunk, but like literally drinking while knocking back a beer while driving. And that's our hero, folks.
And the whole reason for that, of course, is this was clearly Wow, how did I just drop the name? The baseball movie with Walter Matthau, right? Bad News Bears. This was totally
Oh
a
yeah,
Bad News Bears thing, kind of, and I think they were doing a throwback to that because he was a drunk,
right,
and that is interesting. Like these are two movies where we have a lead character that just has alcohol problems, and they're like, take care of all of these young children.
right, yeah.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, that doesn't seem
Not the
legit.
people we generally put in charge of our children.
No, I did think that only now do I realize that maybe like, oh, the bad boy who needs to learn about teamwork. Was that a little bit of Emilio Estevez playing against his public persona? Because he was part of the Brat Pack.
Oh, was he? Okay, yeah. Oh yeah, yeah.
I have no idea
Sure.
because
Like it
I
was
do remember.
Emilio and Rob Lowe and like
Right,
all
yeah.
these guys in the '80s were like the Brat Pack. They were like the young Hollywood stars who were like Charlie Sheen, of course, and like all these people who just like got into no end of trouble and were noted like partiers and blah blah blah. And now you got Emilio.
Look up Rob Lowe. He did way worse than drinking in a
Did
car.
do a lot worse.
Oh no, definitely
Yeah.
no. I'm not. I don't come here to lionize Rob Lowe.
No. But along the lines of that drinking and driving with Emilio thing, did any of you guys see back? It was a few years ago when the NHL was running those like "What if" history moment commercials.
Oh, these sound amazing. I don't know, and
They were
we've
like
got
these really dramatic commercials that were I can't remember exactly what the wording was, but like it would be like, "What if so and so player didn't do
What if
this?"
Lafayette hits the net?
Yeah, well, that would be a Canuck one. But like, what if someone didn't like pull off this big moment or whatever, and then it's like an early thing in the playoffs, and then they went on to win the Stanley Cup. Someone parodied this one for these commercials for the Mighty Ducks.
Oh,
And
that's
it was
amazing.
it was the Mighty Ducks like. It starts with like the Mighty Ducks celebrating the championship, like the commercials start with like a team celebrating the Stanley Cup, and then it sort of rewinds back to a really important moment early on. So it was the Mighty Ducks celebrating the championship, and then it rewinds back to Emilio Estevez, Coach Gordon Bombay, getting pulled over, and the big dramatic question at the end is, what if Bombay didn't blow a .08?
That's really good. The NHL, I gotta say, the NHL commercials for like the playoffs, as far as like talking about their significance, are awesome.
Yeah,
The NHL does a great job every playoffs. Maybe more so than any other league, I'm prepared to say, although I don't care as much about the marketing. I mean, I do like the NBA and the NFL a lot, but I'm more in tune with the NHL's marketing efforts
yes.
because the rest of the year doesn't seem like they can get anything right. But the playoffs, they totally nail it.
Well, they only have so much budget, and they just save it all for the playoffs.
That's
I
true.
guess, unlike the NFL, who can just throw money at everything.
Yeah, but I mean, they've got that clip of Timo Solani crying, so it's like
Yeah.
whatever. That's just a commercial. Like, oh god,
That's all you need.
Anytime you need it.
So this is kind of weird. My favorite moment, and I actually want to transition to this character actually, is have you ever seen the Stanley Cup when the Colorado Avalanche win in 2001 and Ray Bourque finally gets a title?
Of course.
Yeah, doesn't
And I
Sakic
think
give
it's-
it to Ray Bourque first?
Class
He does,
act,
which
go
is
Sakic.
amazing. I think it's Ray Bourque's kid, but there's just this little kid that is crying, and he doesn't look like he's crying like happy, like looks in pain. And every time I watch the 2001 Avalanche winning, I just see that clip, and I'm like, this just random crying kid in the middle of all this celebration. I'm like, this is a really weird clip to watch.
Is
I
the
feel-
kid at least wearing like Colorado Avalanche jersey and
I think
gear?
he's wearing like a hat or something. Brian's
Okay.
trying to find it. He's not going to though. Not in time at
Hey,
least.
I believe in you.
So
Yeah, I
anyway,
think you can find
here's what I want to bring up.
God, I love
on the note.
I met Joe Sakic as a child, by the way. I just want to point that out there. When
That
I was 6
is-
years old, I
I-
got Joe Sakic's autograph. I still have the card.
Yeah, and then now
I-
now that we're interrupting with tangents, I want to ask, what's it like to have had your team win the Stanley Cup?
It's good. And
Oh,
you know,
you
we-
sound
we-
so disinterested.
Well, it's the rough part is the lockout legitimately killed hockey for me, and it was because basically the Colorado Avalanche were such a powerhouse, and they changed all the salary cap rules, and right after that happened, basically we were like stuck with a bunch of old people. We
You
lost
kind of changed
Forsberg.
them because of the Colorado Avalanche, some might say.
We were making money and doing good things. There were other, most of the teams in the NHL were losing money. That's not on us.
Yeah,
But a
fair.
lot changed, and I basically the hockey lockout actually turned me into a big time basketball fan. So I hate
Yeah, look at that.
I hate to be mean, but like I'll say this even as someone who has a team that's like won a Stanley Cup. If it's over a decade old, get over it. Like to sports fans, and so
No,
that's kind of the
I gotta say, man, like from
right.
someone whose team has never won, it's tough. Like if they won once in my lifetime, like my dad, I was talking to him about this a little while ago. said that he doesn't think it'll ever happen in his life. Like, if
Oh,
it
that's-
happened one time, that would be really awesome.
Yeah.
You got some close calls. Like it was really sad, but what you gonna do? But here's what I was gonna say. So Ray Bork was one of the great was behind Bobby Orr the greatest defenseman in NFL history. If anybody's gonna bring up those Red Wings players, they're wrong. Ray Bork number two. And one of the things Ray Bork was notorious for was having a super accurate, super amazing slap shot. So I actually went and looked up his numbers and looked at his shot percentage. It was like 6% in his prime. And that makes sense because first off, hockey's a little different, right? If you miss, they don't count it as a shot. It has to actually be on net. And second, if you're a defenseman, the strategy typically is they give you the puck. You're going to try and, part of the shot is to create action. You're not necessarily intending on hitting, but if it hits the goalie really hard and comes off, there's lots of rebounding opportunities. But this is one of
As the saying goes, only good things can happen.
Yes.
Yeah. So, but Ray Bork, one of the most amazing slap shot shooters in the history of the NHL. And he was lucky if he was 6% in his prime, like 6 to 10% of those shots going in.
Yeah.
That's pretty high. That's
is
really
pretty
high for a career.
And he consistently won like the accuracy contest at the All-Star game. So we've got Fulton Reed, who's a character in the Mighty Ducks, and his two flaws, according to the movie, are he doesn't know how to skate, but they do the Mall of America and
They
teach
fix
him.
that real quick.
And the other is that he only shoots 1 in 5 to actually hit on net. But their implication is if it gets on net, it just goes in.
That's 20%.
Yeah.
Why on earth don't they just give this guy the puck every play of the game?
Well, because there are moments that they, much like the Flying V, they address that. Do they not?
Well, yeah. I mean,
teams
you
kinda
got to set
scout
him
it
up
out.
for the shot. Like he doesn't have the skill to like get open to take a shot. So everyone else has to, kind of set up the play to get it back to him open enough so that he can wind up for the big slap shot. Because that's one of the downfalls of a slap shot is it does take a little bit of time to get off. It is the hardest shot.
Yeah.
So you get it off, it's definitely going to have a better percentage of maybe getting in, but it definitely increases the opportunity for the defenseman to get in the way or knock you over or block
Definitely.
it.
And I'll actually say two things about this from a legitimate NHL strategy standpoint. I'm glad you brought this up, Dre. Number one, Ray Bork, known for having a great slap shot from the point on defense, but one of his contemporaries actually was much more famed for having a harder shot, and that would be St. Louis's Al McInnes, who was widely famed at the same time that Ray Bork was in his prime as having the hardest defensive slap shot in the league. But Al McInnes didn't score as much as Ray Bork because it's not all about the strength of the shot. You got to be accurate as well.
That's true.
Now, I concede the point that 20% of the time the shot going in would be very, very accurate. But the other thing, and Chris brought this up as well, is that if Fulton Reed's not a good skater, it almost doesn't matter. Like if you can't create separation, it's not going to go your way.
But to be fair, in one of the games, they were able to they're like 2 minutes left to go. It's your time, Fulton. And then also their
back,
strategy.
yeah.
Their strategy is pre-game, they just show them shooting a lot, and the other players just apparently, despite having years of hockey training, the rule is if this guy gets the puck, duck in cover and leave the window open. So I still don't see in this movie how Fulton Reed just doesn't shoot every single shot.
My defense for those for the kids getting out of the way of the shots, and I'll highlight a particular word there, kids. They have not encountered a shot of this level. Like they set up Fulton Reed as having like an NHL quality slap shot. That is a slap
at
shot.
12 years old.
Yeah, at like 12 years old. So that is a slap shot far and above anything any of these kids have ever seen before. If you're watching live right now, you're seeing that slap shot literally knock a goalie into the back of the net. So
a feat not repeated before or after.
Yeah, at that age, the next best slap shot would probably be not even as hard as an adult's wrist shot at that point.
But again, there's no reason this team shouldn't try and get Fulton Reed 10 slap shots a game.
Oh,
and if
definitely.
They can't set that up.
He's your big weapon. You want to use him as often as possible. But if you overuse it, I feel like much like you'll see when they play against better teams, and perhaps in the second movie you'll see them trying to defend against a different shot from the point. Teams, kind of get a beat on it, and they may or may not target. What's the term for it? The shooter. So when they know that the shooter is out there, they'll perhaps adjust their defense around that. So you want to use it sparingly. And of course, these teams, Actually, there's another what the fuck moment. Let me.
Let's just go straight into it.
Okay, so these teams, they are, this is a Pee Wee hockey organization, so they don't have the scouting that perhaps an NHL team has. So for a lot of them, when they're playing against Fulton Reed, their first experience with his slap shot is the first time he lets it off. So they haven't had the chance to like look at videotape and develop their strategy around that. But speaking of which, one of the big WTF moments from watching this movie was how into this fucking sorry, can we swear on this podcast?
Yeah, we already did. We did good plus to shit minus. We started.
All right, okay. How
That doesn't even
into
feel like swearing anymore, does it?
how into this fucking Pee Wee hockey league everybody is, and this isn't just some like tiny little town where all they have is Pee Wee hockey. This is Minneapolis,
They got
Minnesota.
at the time the North Stars.
But so like anytime the Ducks or District 5 or whatever plays a
Hawks.
game, or the Hawks specifically, this
dynasty,
they're really into the Hawks. They show like newspaper clippings of what has happened in this Pee Wee League, and the newspaper bills itself as the #1 hockey publication in America.
Yeah, it's called Hockey. It's called Hockey, because I actually looked at that clip for Mighty Ducks 2 actually.
Yeah.
And looked at it, but to be fair, they just have I feel this was, you would know better as people that actually do like graphic and visual design and stuff. I feel this was just one of the editors had the ability to do like the spinning paper or the fake paper mock-up. And they were like, how are we going to transition between each to let people know what's going on? And they were like, that's Mighty Ducks 2, Brian Foster. That is bullshit.
I've got good hustle.
Don't worry, it
Brian.
didn't get on air. It didn't get on air.
But
So
Mighty Ducks 2,
Brian,
that makes sense because that's an international tournament. This is
Exactly.
just a Minnesota-based or Minneapolis-based Pee Wee hockey team.
Yeah.
Okay, so help me out here too on this, because I've got some stats behind that. As far as I can tell, this is a 12-team league.
Yep.
Wherein the top 10 teams make the playoffs. That's what they tell us. It's district-based, which means it's not based on you joining. It's not club level. It's just where you live. A fact that I'm going to bring up in Mighty Ducks 2. And according to them, we have Gordon Banks Adam
Banks.
Adam Banks. Wow.
The cake eater
and Gordon
himself,
Bombay.
the eater of cakes.
Both of whom are amazing scorers. And we're told Gordon Banks, when he was a kid, scored over 100 goals.
189 goals in one season.
Was it 189?
Yes.
Yeah.
It's a 14 games.
I'm glad you looked that up, because I was going to say, does anyone know how many games are in the Pee Wee hockey season?
Because like that's a statistic goal-wise that would be like comparable to like what Gretzky scored in a Pee Wee league. But I feel like he probably played more than 14 games.
So that's the thing I was thinking about, because you see that all the time. We're at the junior level, especially in the young junior levels. The kids who have it are way better than everyone else, and it's not even close. And I don't know if that's true in like basketball and football. But in hockey, that's definitely the case. Like, you often see like even scouting reports at the AHL or CHL level for the minor league developmental teams for the NHL. There'll be players who are like, this player should be crushing. Like, they'll be hesitant to call a player up if he's not dominating people and like really, really lighting up the scoreboards. Like, if you're a top prospect, you should destroy the competition below you.
And that's, I mean, at that level, it's you can kind of look at it that way. But there is any of the top prospects. Those are players that like NHL scouts have in their mind from like age 13. So like Sidney Crosby, people knew Sidney Crosby was going to be the next Wayne Gretzky from when he was like 13 years old, because no one had dominated a Pee Wee league like he did.
Yeah,
that actually gives some. Well, it's interesting. That gives some credence to the whole Gordon being amazing and actually getting called up and all that jazz.
Yeah, a 29-year-old
I don't.
Whatever it was.
It would be about 20. I looked it up. Here's some facts about this league. It's a 12-team league, which seems small if you're going for like a major state title. It seems like the state title should have more than 12, especially in, Minnesota. Only 14 games in a season. Is that a lot or a little for, did you actually play Pee Wee hockey? Like, what does that relate to in a hockey season?
I didn't really neither of us
play
played ice hockey growing
played roller
up.
hockey.
But I feel like a game a week probably seems about like a game and a practice a week probably seems about right. Like I played like Pee Wee baseball growing up, and that was about what it was.
Yeah, definitely.
That might not be bad,
Sometimes there was 3 games a week. That was it. Like, that'd be rare though.
But that's 3.5 months. That's not unreasonable actually. But I just don't feel like what bugs me is I don't feel like this league should be the premier state championship hockey league. Like, sure, I can see them having a title, but it doesn't feel, it feels kind of jokish in terms of its size.
Yeah.
So
Maybe,
here's the thing I'll say is to me, I just took that as when I was hand waving the things in this movie that didn't make any sense to me away. Something like that just struck me as that's just what they branded, like the Major League Baseball World Series. It's not actually a world level series. It's just in the United States.
Okay.
Well, North America, I should say.
Sure.
'Cause
My
Toronto.
take on it was that so like we didn't grow up in the I don't know, but you guys where you grew up, like was high school level football a big thing?
not so much in Colorado, but in the South down here, it's huge.
Yeah, so like we're huge fans of the TV series Friday Night Lights, and that's high school football.
Definitely.
And so I think that what they were trying to do with this Pee Wee League was make it seem like to the folk of Minneapolis that they cared as much about this Pee Wee League as people in the South would care about high school football.
So yeah, that's what I was thinking about it too, because that obviously that was where my mind went when I was watching it as well. I wonder if they were like, because like that's strange credulity a little bit for me. Like I also can't imagine like a Pee Wee hockey league that's that intense with at the parental support and family and friends level. But I can weirdly kind of understand Disney making a hockey movie being like, how can we put this in terms that like the rest of North America will understand?
Yeah.
And trying to make it seem like, oh, this is our high school football.
Yeah, so let's make it seem like that.
Yeah.
And there's tons of movies out there that are about high school football teams.
Totally,
and like
yeah.
they have the big stadiums and the crowds come out and watch it and everyone is into it. So
And
that's
you
just not
cry
the
when
way.
you watch the series
Yeah,
finale.
that's just not the way anyone treats hockey. So I guess they were just trying to build up the sport because like, this movie came out and like hockey wasn't that and still isn't quite as popular in the States.
Not
Well,
even close.
this is the only Disney franchise that ever birthed an NHL team. So
That's true.
Oh, there's way more to talk there. Okay, there's a lot more to talk, but we got about 20 minutes. So I gotta lay my big bomb. I gotta get this point out regardless.
okay.
I don't think Gordon Bombay learns his lesson. In fact, I think this movie is 100% about how Gordon Bombay doesn't learn the lesson as the hero. So for those watching, in case in case you haven't watched the full movie, here's the rundown. Gordon Bombay played hockey as a kid. His origin story gets retconned 3 times throughout the 3 movies, but basically he quits playing, gets big into law, becomes a hotshot lawyer, has drinking problems. His boss convinces him that he needs to take a break from work because he's too concerned about winning in career and he needs to do community service. The community service he gives him, coaching a Pee Wee hockey team. Gordon goes to coach the Pee Wee hockey team, and in doing so, learns about teamwork and fair play and to be a better person, and then goes back to pursue his dream of being a hockey player at the end of the movie. Sorry for the spoilers. However,
Well, the movie's 20 years old. So
however, in the middle of the movie, Gordon Bombay convinces his boss to give him $15,000 in sponsorship dollars to help the team out. He additionally finds 3 ringers, Tommy and Tammy, who are figure skaters, and Fulton Reed, who we've discussed at length now, as well as convincing them that the district lines were drawn incorrectly, and as such, the best player on the Hawks, Adam Banks, belongs on the Ducks. After his boss tells him, hey, this kid has a team he enjoys playing with, he has family and friends he enjoys playing with, he's got a legacy, maybe you should let this kid be on the team he wants to be on. Gordon says no, ends up getting fired from his job over it, gets a ringer on the team, and they go on to win the state title. It sounds like to me the start of Gordon's arc is win at all cost person that doesn't care about the consequences. And the end result is he takes a Pee Wee hockey team and wins at all costs and doesn't care about the consequences. And that I think Ducksworth was right the entire. I think Ducksworth was actually the right character, and that their breaking wasn't Gordon Bombay making the right like hero move. I feel that's like him like killing Jiminy Cricket in the middle of the movie.
Okay.
Yeah. Do you want?
Go ahead. No,
okay.
you go.
So I totally see where you're coming from on that, but the one thing I'll disagree with you on is it wasn't that Bombay convinced them that the lines were drawn incorrectly. The lines were drawn the way they were drawn. It was that the Hawks cheated to have Banks be on their team when he shouldn't have been.
Yeah.
So I mean, the
Much
Hawks
like
were
Luke Gafferty in Friday Night
exactly,
Lights.
yeah. So the Hawks were definitely in the wrong on that one, and Gordon Bombay was just out there righting said wrong and getting the player on the team that he should have been. And I understand where you're coming from with the like Banks's friends are all on the other team. You want to let him play with the other team. Maybe you grandfather that in as they had pitched doing. And yeah, to that extent, you're probably right. But I mean, if call a cheater, they were cheating. That kid should be with the Ducks, and we'll see how that played out because I feel like he made some lifelong friends who weren't colossal assholes like the Hawks were. So it worked out nicely for Banks in the end.
And also the other thing I'll say is that they actually make a specific point, and I'm sorry to take umbrage with a specific phrasing you used, that Banks was the best player on the Hawks. Now that might have been true, but they also make a point to talk about how the fact that Coach Riley has, I think they say something like he's got 5 other kids as good as Banks.
I don't remember that.
There's an actual
right, but I think that's hyperbole on Gordon's part because he says, "Come on, why do you need Banks? You've got 5 other Banks on your team."
Yes, yeah. No, Banks is definitely the best player.
Okay, fine, fair enough. But the other thing I'll say is that's a very specific reading of it, but it doesn't take into account how the rest of the Ducks feel and what they learn from the experience. And they learn about teamwork and believing in themselves, and they get a community to believe in themselves. And weirdly, in a very progressive route, it shows the importance of systemic funding about how disenfranchised youth and disenfranchised peoples can benefit from large societal giving back to the community.
That's true.
Because the law firm, because they say these kids don't believe in themselves and no one else takes them seriously because they're forced to go out there with janky-ass hockey equipment. Now, hockey's an expensive sport to play when you're a kid. It's not something that a lot of disenfranchised youth get the opportunity to do. So the fact that these, lower income kids get a chance to do this and really make a difference out there, that's great. And I think that's the fact that Gordon Bombay facilitated that
makes him a true hero.
It does. And that's the kind of thing where you look at, output versus motivation. Was he like totally turning the other corner emotionally at that point? At a certain point, it doesn't matter because he still did all this good for the community.
That's true. I mean, certainly he regresses in movie number 2.
Oh, big time.
And we'll talk about that.
Because he has to learn the same lesson again.
More or less the exact same lesson again. Another WTF moment, actually, now that we're talking about this sponsorship thing, is one of the things that I don't think I definitely didn't notice growing up watching this movie, and I was very glaring in this watch of it, was how much merchandise this Pee Wee hockey team had available to its fans.
Yeah.
There were hats and T-shirts
and
jackets, like everything. Like, were people profiting off of this?
Well, I mean, again, you look at the Dylan Panthers merch,
I guess so, yeah.
Well, here's what I can give you because I've done some, like, I'm actually wearing a custom shirt I made. Like, I feel that this is like Emilio Estevez because he makes them their custom jerseys and tries to sell them on it. I feel that like he has a friend at a print shop and he's just like he's that guy who's like I can print up 100 shirts for and he was rich right at this point. He's still a hotshot lawyer. So he's just like, are you kidding me? I can print up 100 shirts for this. He's like, everybody gets a shirt. So I feel that one I actually feel is justified. And I feel in this movie it is very clear that the Gordon Bombay, Hans, Jans, whatever trio.
Oh, it's Hans in this movie.
It is Hans.
Yeah. But he shows up it's Jans in number 2. They don't even care. I feel it's very apparent that they just have some merchandise rep that they just are like, can you make a shirt with this on it? He's like, oh yeah, we can do that. So I that one I feel is acceptable.
Yeah, you crack that thing wide open. I bet you they have this guy, and his whole shtick is he's just trying to get them to funnel shirt orders to him, and they're getting something under the table on that.
Time. Yeah,
probably works at Mall of America. Okay,
I have two quick WTF moments. Quickly before we move on. One, when finally when Gordon Bombay meets Fulton Reed, he has that speech of like, "Is it true what they say about you? That you have you got all these scholarships but you can't take them or something like that?" And that's never brought up before that or touched on.
No, it is.
It is brought up before.
Is it? When they're going on the shopping spree, he said Fulton Reed is in the hockey shop, which is odd because he can't skate and doesn't play hockey. And and Gordon Bombay says, why isn't he on the team? And they said, and one of the guys, I forget who says, got some kind of hotshot scholarship deal to play
football.
Football.
Oh.
And then they were like, but the scholarship is contingent on him not playing hockey because they don't want him to get injured.
Oh.
And that's why Bombay asks, is that true? And to which Fulton Reed says, it's not true. The reason I don't play hockey is I can't skate. So he fabricated this other story.
By the way, I love the line he uses there. This has come into my vernacular over life forever. He goes, people talk don't mean nothing.
Yeah. Nice.
Yeah. Wise wisdom, wise words. The other thing that's weird is the subplot between Charlie Conway encouraging his Pee Wee hockey coach to fuck his mom.
Oh yeah, one of my last notes from this movie. Charlie wants Bombay to fuck his mom.
Yeah, definitely. Like, are you gonna stay for dinner again? You gonna fuck my mom? Like, it's so weird.
Because I want you to fuck my mom.
Yeah,
I'm okay
please,
with it.
Please fuck my mom,
Coach, I want you to know it's okay.
Oh my god. Well,
It's so strange.
I just listened to your podcast right before I watched this. This was I listened to your They Came Together one, and I watched it again to give it another shot because I didn't like it my first. It was much like you, Chris. I was in the right, but I watched again, and unlike you, I actually like They Came Together and Wet Hot American Summer. Anyway, sorry.
I love They Came Together. I want it known on the record. I love that movie. It's Wet Hot American Summer that I'm
glad you brought up Wet Hot
on.
American Summer because I might bring it up.
Yeah, I was gonna say
Nice.
this is probably good. That was a tangent to the That Thing You Like podcast. Go listen to it. Listen to the They Came Together one. But anyway, that was totally that trope of the like, are you my new dad? Like I saw
Yeah.
that, and he basically was just like, come on in, dad. And I was like, this is very odd.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Although
different
it's,
take
as
on
much as Charlie crosses the line, Coach Bombay definitely goes a little too far on that date that he goes on with Charlie's mom.
Yeah.
And this is something that friend of the show and co-host of my other podcast, At the Movies 10 Years Later, Jordan Bowman, is fond of bringing up. When they go on that date and Charlie's mom is talking about like looking at the mansion, being like, I always like imagine myself in that mansion, and I gave Charlie that room over there. Bombay jumps way too far over the line and says, I want to live there too. Where's my room? Slow your roll a little bit, Bombay. You're on date one.
But they do address that, and I feel you're right. I think he was
Yeah.
he was trying to be like cute and clever, and she shoots him down. She's quick.
Yeah.
She's like,
Which is totally
no, yeah. So I think we agree on that. Any other last notes? Otherwise, we can go to. I mean, we could talk for another hour, but we've got another podcast to do after this. So I'm ready.
The only other thing I wanted to highlight was actually two things. One, I really love when they're playing the Hawks in the final, and they flash to Adam Banks's dad in the crowd, and he has chosen to stay aligned with the Hawks.
I know, he's got the Hawks shirt on.
Yeah, I was like, I mean, he turns over the course of the game, he starts cheering for his son, but I just thought that was hilarious. Actually, sorry, I have to add another thing. I love how much the evil Hawks coach just wants to murder Adam Banks.
Yeah, I want you to drop him like a bad habit.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, no. So this comes up in Mighty Ducks 2, but that was the most bizarre thing because he basically says take him out, and they give him a concussion.
And they do that, and then
They fucking check him in the back. They make it seem like he can't walk for a
Yeah.
second.
But it is so overt. Like when the kid goes to the penalty box with the ref behind him, he like gives him a like thumbs up and like waves, and the kid like thumbs up back, and I'm like,
Well, never
there
mind
is-
the immortal
Yeah.
line.
Oh, yeah.
What
But
are
I'm
you
saying, like,
doing?
my job.
But
That's one of the
shit for
yeah.
an 11-year-old.
That's one of
Guys,
the-
in my notes, I said that's his John Kreese moment.
Yeah.
but all I
That
was
is one
gonna
of the
say,
coldest lines in the history of cinema.
Yeah.
but all I'm saying is it's bizarre how the villain in this movie acts like no one is what. There's this huge crowd that they've got the ref right there, and he like just makes this very clear show. It's like, how do you just not end the game right there and be like, yeah, you tried to murder a kid,
Yeah.
you forfeit, you lose. Like,
Yeah.
Well, that's one of the things that comes up a lot in these Mighty Ducks movies. It's
Injuring Adam Banks.
injuring Adam Banks, absolutely. But it becomes more egregious in the second movie. I can't remember offhand in the third movie, but the Ducks do not get a lot of help from the officials. Like there's a lot of situations
we're
where like
going to disagree on that in number 2, and I'll explain.
Oh,
why.
okay, sure. But there's a lot of situations where like the Ducks will do something and it'll be like a minor infraction, and the ref will be like, all right, you're out of the game. And then the opposing team will do something much worse only seconds later, and it'll only be a 2-minute penalty.
Yeah,
so
it's crazy.
It's a bit weird. The third thing I wanted to bring up was, and I don't know if this will affect anyone's power rankings or draft order, but I just want to say that Goldberg sucks.
Yeah, Goldberg's terrible.
Has he ever actually made a save?
No, and that's why the biggest thing of the third movie, the thing that they totally get right, is like, yeah, you're not a Goldberg.
Yeah, you're not. You're just not. Like, the only saves he makes in this movie are when pucks are shot directly at him. There's never a situation where he, like, kicks out a leg or puts out his hand.
You're going to get to say this in all 3, and I'm actually happy you brought this up in 1. But yes, Goldberg sucks. The one justification they have this. Okay, this is actually, man, we're going to go a little over, but that's fine.
That's
But all I was going to say is in all of these movies, they don't have a full roster. They have like 12 to 14 kids. And I think this is because people are used to like basketball in the US. But like a typical hockey team should have 3 lines and 2 goalies.
4 lines.
Which, right. Well, I'm saying, I was going to say like at minimum you'd have 3. 4 is like what we're used to, right?
Yeah.
So
Well,
three lines.
an NHL team would have four forward lines of three players each on each
Yeah.
forward line. So 4 forward lines and 3 defensive lines.
Three
and
defensive
then,
pairings.
Oh, sorry, 3 defensive pairings. So 6 total D-men and 2 goalies. I guess like a Pee Wee team would probably do 3 forward lines, 3 defensive lines, or 2 defensive lines and 2 goalies.
Yeah, I think that's probably fair.
But so that would still be like over 15. And in these cases, like they have like they do not have full lines. They have like 2.5 lines, and that comes up in number 2. I'm sorry to keep going ahead to that. So I don't even understand that like in these things, like we get Goldberg being the goalie because that's all they have. But these aren't full teams because I feel they just couldn't make full rosters.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
I mean, there's only so much room for a number of characters. And in their defense, I think most Pee Wee hockey teams only have one goalie. And if for whatever reason that goalie is injured or sick, someone else just straps on the pads.
Yeah, I mean, I do see here listed on Wikipedia. There's McGill and Larson, who are number 7 and number 33.
Who are McGill and Larson?
Yeah,
It might be on.
Oh, it
Are
might
they
be
on the
Hawks.
Ducks or are they Hawks?
I don't know.
And actually, to the point of Goldberg being the only goalie on the team, I will make reference to the one time my roller hockey team's goalie was not there. I strapped on the pads and got, I believe it was a 4-save shutout.
Oh, hey,
because the other team
congratulations.
was really, really bad.
Congratulations.
All right. So on the note of players and incomplete leagues, let's just go straight to this is also from yours. I think this is very, very straightforward. Power rankings. It's characters in movies, television shows, etc. We rank them on a draft order: first round, second round, third round, top 3 each. As you mentioned, it's off the board. So as soon as one person's picked, the other can't. I didn't really think about this. Chris, I'm going to give you first go.
Oh, yay.
Oh,
Commissioner's just cheating. So I'm going to
Yeah,
go
I
Chris,
love it.
Brian, then
I love
myself.
it. I mean, yeah.
then we'll-
Yeah, absolutely. Abuse that power. Abuse your commissioner power.
Okay.
Okay.
God bless.
With the first overall pick,
This is a no-brainer, by the way.
Team Chris proudly selects easily the best player in all of the Mighty Ducks movies. You know him as the eater of cake.
God damn it.
Oh,
I will
wow,
take
okay.
Adam Banks.
Of course you do.
Yeah.
That's not even a contest.
I mean, you're happy to build a franchise around Adam Banks.
God, that's. This is the one that is most applicable to the draft rankings that we've ever done. Where
I
we're
know,
like, Jesus,
Because it's literally a sports
I know.
franchise we're building.
All right.
Well, that's good to have
Banks.
Banks.
Oh God.
That seems okay. Well, that's interesting. Yeah, you didn't go for like any character stuff. He always bugged me a little, but I'll give that to you. He was good.
You know what? He puts up numbers, and yeah, you got to score goals to win games.
I'll give it to you. All right, Brian, with number 2.
This is a real tough one. Real tough one. I got two people there that I'm looking at. I guess. Oh, God. Yeah, I think I'm gonna have to go with Guy Germain. Guy is actually shown to be, I would say, significantly more skilled than a lot of the shitty Ducks.
Oh, definitely.
I think Guy is like, he might not reach the heights of Banks,
Yeah.
but he's a steady hand.
Yeah.
He's not like even the Charlie Conway thing of they like where Charlie's a choke artist.
Well, he's got intangibles, Charlie.
Well, that's a different thing. But like, I'm not interested in intangibles when I'm making my first round pick. You know what
Yeah,
I'm saying?
that's
Like,
fair.
I need
True.
a player who can do some things.
Yeah. Okay.
And Guy Germain's going to go out there and do some things.
Can I tell you in defense of your pick?
Sure.
When the Mighty Ducks are given the opportunity to shoot a penalty shot and they're allowed to select any player on the ice, there is an overwhelming majority of Ducks who say, "Oh, Guy should take the shot."
Yeah, there you go.
And it's only when Coach Bombay says, "Let's give it to Charlie," that he
started it,
actually
he
gets
should
the
finish
shot.
it.
Yeah, and which is a fair argument. But yeah, everyone wanted Guy. He has definitely proven himself as one of the more skilled Ducks out there. Great
No,
pick.
Gordon Bombay's moment there is let me take my vicarious live through this kid moment instead of
Yes.
what's good for the team. But
Exactly.
all right.
Sure.
All right, this is easy. I mean, I'm going to take Fulton Reed. I just gave the full thing on how you just let him shoot 20 shots a game and
Yeah.
destroy Pee Wee.
Yeah, good luck finding someone to pass in the puck. I'm just gonna say that's what happens when you pick a skill role player,
Yeah.
not a franchise centerpiece.
Yeah, no, but I agree with your pick, and I feel like under with you at the helm coaching a team with Fulton Reed, You would build your offense around him, and you would definitely be a dominant force in this hypothetical league that we are creating.
You'd be the Pee Wee hockey equivalent of the Daryl Morey Rockets, just threes and layups.
Exactly. Just take slap shots. And by the way, I feel bad. These might make it into the show notes, but I took notes on the league standings and what needed to happen, and why the end result was such BS based on the league ratings. But none of those made it to the show. But anyway,
there's some stuff in D2 that I'm very excited to talk to you specifically about. So I'm excited that we're talking about that next, just based on how into that level of what was going on in this movie you are.
All right, so we've got are we doing a snake, or we just keep going the same way?
I think it's got to go round.
We got to go just normal round by round. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I mean, I don't know if this is is this in the spirit of the way to pick it? Because what are we drafting here? We're characters in this movie, right? So with my second round pick,
no.
I probably select
this is bullshit.
the Minnesota Miracle Man himself. I'll take Gordon Bombay.
I like how both Brian and me saw what you said.
I can't believe he dropped to me in
right.
round 2.
Okay, that definitely changed.
180, what was it?
89 goals.
189 goals in Pee Wee. The guy had a real shot at the end, if not for an injury. But at this point, he doesn't have that injury.
It's true.
So I'll take him on my team.
Even no matter what, even as a coach, I disagree with his coaching methods. He brings you money, so that he's either got funding for your team and good scouting ability, or amazing. Doesn't matter what you're using him as. I'm
putting him out on the ice. Him and Banks. That's a huge 1-2 punch.
Okay, so this to me is, and I won't disagree with you. Wow, I gotta watch that movie. This to me feels like one of those picks from the 90s where and Pavel Bure was drafted and they're like, is he even eligible? We don't even know. He plays in the Russian league. How old is he? Nobody knows how old Emilio is, and that's why he's playing in this league.
Yep.
But you know what? If that's fair and the whole cast is open, then I'm going to one-up you, Mr. Big Time, Mr. Big fucking Shot. I'm going with perennial NHL All-Star Mike Modano.
I thought you were going to go there. I love it. Yeah, do it.
Oh, this is bullshit, but that's cool. I was gonna do that if you didn't, though, so I respect it. By the way,
I just wrote down Mike Modano, and I'm fucking thrilled to have him.
That's great.
What I was gonna say,
I think.
By the way, that's the kind of leadership Guidry Man can really learn from.
Yeah, I think I'll say, I think Bombay's potential is higher than Modano's, and in this fictional league that we are building, where he doesn't have any injury, I think he'll surpass him. But I respect that you went there and you took.
I want to point out that Mike Modano ended his career as the all-time U.S. leading point scorer in the NHL.
Yeah, and that's all well and good for little Mike Modano.
Great. That's great if you're an American.
Yeah, and that's all great for Mike Modano. But you know what?
Point of order, Canada is in America too. Just
had Gordon Bombay gotten his legitimate shot, that would be his record to hold.
I mean, that's fair, but I mean, there's a lot of could have beens and should haves in professional sports.
But that's what we're building here.
By the way, one note. I looked this up for that, and this didn't come up, so I'm glad you picked it just so I can bring this point up. Mike Modano runs into Gordon Bombay, says, hey, you used to rule in Pee Wees. If you want a shot at the minors, hook me up. I looked at Mike Modano. He grew up in Michigan. So Gordon played in Minnesota. He's from Michigan.
I want to take a small point with that. I believe it's actually Basil McRae who.
It is actually him and he's introducing him to Mike Modano and saying, is
Basil McRae from? Okay, so
I can only assume so. I haven't looked in that far.
It isn't Mike Modano who gets him the shot. That's all I know.
All right. Well, I feel just to compete, even though I don't even know his stats, but everybody else has an NHL worthy person. I've got to go with Basil McRae, who's the only other NHL worthy person. He did play for the Quebec Nordiques, who did become the Avs. So I'm not proud of this pick. I feel I'm screwed no matter what. But there you go. Yeah, Basil McRae and
that's the kind of guy with the meat and potatoes kind of hockey that can get someone like Fulton Reed the puck. So I think he made the choice that maybe is not the sexy pick, but it's a smart play.
And by the way, I looked him up. He was born in Beaverton, Ontario. So neither Mike Modano or Basil McRae have any reason to know why Gordon Bombay was awesome in a 12-team Pee Wee league.
Maybe Bombay played at a higher level than even the Ducks are playing here, and maybe he played in some international tournament where they cross the border up into Canada to play against Basel.
Theoretically, it's possible.
It could have been.
We'll talk that in Mighty Ducks 3. Okay, let's finish this round up. I don't know who's left. This is garbage time, so who do we got left?
I don't know. There's some good players left.
There's some.
All right, who do we got?
Okay, I'm excited to have this player. Like I feel like I have two really solid wingers here, real scoring wingers. What I feel like they need out there is someone who can dish them the puck, and someone who can bring some character into the dressing room, and really just keep things positive. And I'm going to go with actually one of my all-time favorite Ducks. I'm really happy that I get the opportunity to draft this player. I'm going to go with one Lester Averman.
Oh.
I've always been a big Averman fan, and you know what? I feel like he's a real underrated player out there, and one of the things he definitely brings, because he's one of the guys who will be making the big plays, particularly in the Flying V. So I feel like if I put him in between Banks and Bombay, you got Averman in the middle, you got a formidable line. That's what I want to build my franchise around.
All right, fair enough.
Every team, even the smart teams, has to have that WTF moment in their draft, and you have yours, so I give it to you. But
you know what? Time's going to tell on this pick.
Yeah,
this is one of those picks where people are like, "What?" But you know what? You give this a couple of years, and people will be like, "That was one of the smartest picks anyone has ever made in the history of drafting any hypothetical franchise."
You know what? I'll say this about Chris's drafting acumen. He seems like the kind of GM where the other GMs look at him, and when he does something, it's like, oh, fuck, what does he know that we don't know?
Yeah.
Like, if Chris was like the San Antonio Spurs, and he picked a player that you hadn't heard of or thought low on, you'd be like, oh my God, what the fuck the fuck do they know that we don't know?
Believe me, I've always been a fan of Averman. I've spent a lot of time watching his play out there, specifically in games, because, he's been a guy that
I would say a divisive personality, though.
No, I think people like him.
Possible locker room cancer.
I don't think so. I think he brings positivity to the locker and levity.
Mm.
I don't think anyone in that locker room dislikes.
Kind of
I don't think anyone in that locker room dislikes Laverman.
It's fair.
Okay, Brian, what do you follow that up with?
I'm gonna go with. This is a pure chemistry pick. I'm going Connie Moreau.
Okay. Damn it.
Connie's a great player out there. She proves herself time and time again. Tough, the Velvet Hammer, great nickname, so that's marketable.
That is a great nickname.
And obviously the chemistry with Guy off the charts. That's the romance that carries this film.
Well, I'll tell you what, I don't know in the next movie whether or not he will be this close or not.
Yeah, he is this close. And also, Guy kind of disappears in the background for a lot of D2, but that's fine. It doesn't matter. I still think that talent alone, there's a lot to like there. That's a pretty strong line, I feel. Keith Tremaine, Mike Modano, Connie Moreau. It's a pretty strong line.
It's a pretty great line.
It's a pretty good line.
All right, well, I'm just going to finish this out with Jesse Hall, who I feel was a good player.
Yep.
I already feel my team's not great, but I feel he's the best player left on the board.
Oh, definitely.
You got Andy's a great player.
And I think he can get into Adam Banks' head should those two teams ever cross in this fictitious world.
I'll tell you, Banks does not care for being called a cake eater.
No.
So, yeah, just throw that at him, and it'll throw him right off his game.
He doesn't like that.
All right. Well, I'm not even going to declare winner or loser. That was a lot of fun. And we're right about a time because we're going to record Mighty Ducks 2, which will be going up at the That Thing You Like podcast. So I'm actually just going to end this out. This is great. We're going to keep talking because this isn't even a problem. I'm your host, Dre Alvarez, a.k.a. Nerd Numbers. We have had That Thing You Like, which is Brian Sherla and Chris Baxter. You can find it at thatthingyouLike.com, TTYL Show on Twitter, at Brian_RS, at Cbax. We've been produced by Brian Foster. Find us at BoxscoreGeeks.com. Upvote our show, The Boxscore Geeks Show, on iTunes and Stitcher. And then, twitch.tv/Nerd Numbers. And then you can watch the Nerd Numbers channel on YouTube. That's all I got, unless anybody has anything else to add.
That was a great podcast. I'm excited to talk more Mighty Ducks.
Quack, quack, quack.